So hello and welcome back to another episode of the CEO of Fucking Everything. This time we are joined by our fantastic, brilliant former writer, former podcast host, Joseph Terry. This is a series where myself and Simon, the two co-founders of the Sports News Blitz, and Simon, who is our resident CEO of absolutely everything, talk to people who have worked with SIP, worked with Sports News Blitz, Music News Blitz, Film News Blitz, whoever it may be, and has moved on from our network and is now working full-time or freelance elsewhere. So Joseph, well done to start with, because to my knowledge, I don't think you've been in the network that long, unless time has just flown by that fast. And you're now working full-time. Talk to us about that. What is it you're doing?
So yeah, firstly, thank you for giving me the invite on this prestigious podcast. The role is multimedia content creator at Sportsbeat in Twickenham, with the key clients this year and key events that I'll be covering: Commonwealth Games, Wimbledon, T20 World Cup, European Athletics, FA Cup finals, pretty much everything. And the role is to be that sport agency for sometimes the events everyone wants to talk about, like the FA Cup final, like the Commonwealth Games, and sometimes stuff that isn't covered as much. Make that badminton, make that Crufts recently, when they were leading all of the coverage across all the Reach newspapers. So it's a real box of all sorts in terms of what they're expecting me to write about, which will definitely suit me, I think.
Oh, that's excellent. And yeah, you will. We know how much you like various amounts of different sport, but what we'll do, just to start, we'll go back to the very beginning almost. So how did you first come across SIP, Sports News Blitz, Simon? How did we get into this network to start with?
So I first got in touch with Simon about halfway through my time studying for my STJ to be a qualified journalist, which I've just about finished the course on, just waiting results, but fingers crossed we should be there. And I was writing for rugby paper already at this time. I was the schools reporter, the university Bucks reporter, and also on the Trial Finals match reports. And then I noticed that this little birdie kept reposting my stuff on LinkedIn. Did some research and happened to be Mr. Simon Wilkes. So that was where the relationship started. So you were right earlier on, Matt, about how I joined SIP only in, I believe it was about December time. It's only a few months ago, really. It's been a bit of a crash course since. So that was where the relationship started, and was straight into the Sports News Blitz, and also the Sport Just Sport and News Just News brands across varied topics, across sub-editing and writing, from sub-editing an article about the energy markets and about transport, to writing articles about the economy, football, the rugby, and so on and so forth. So pretty much everything that you could have been thrown to. And then that moved into the Sin Bin 6 podcast, which was great fun, alongside Billy North Lewis, which was really, really cool, because I said this distinctly to Simon at the start of the placement, and also at the start of my training at News Associates for my STJ, was that my background was broadcast. My background was radio. It was doing sport commentary for my student radio station, and then BBC Radio Devon for local radio. And I came into the course not being as clued up and not being as sharp on my writing side. And that was something that was a goal of mine. It was going into that course and into the placement periods thinking, well, I know I'm okay on broadcast, I know I'm okay on podcast. I want to be an ace writer out of this course, which is what I hopefully got out of this placement. I certainly feel like it myself. Obviously, it's up to the audience to decide whether or not they like my articles, but at least on my side, I think that I've certainly leveled up my writing game.
I think this is time to chuck it over to Simon, as this is where the writing extraordinaire comes into play. You've started by reposting Joseph's LinkedIn posts. Just give us a bit of a taste of how important LinkedIn is in terms of networking and getting in touch with us as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I was aware of Joseph because I'm the digital publishing manager for Greenways, and we do the rugby paper, as you can see from the British Lions and the various things behind me. So I already knew of his work, and was liking what he was doing. He was very visible on LinkedIn. What I've mentioned on this podcast, I said to anyone that comes and does a place with me, hit LinkedIn as hard as you can. Make noise on there, connect on there, engage. It's where all of the jobs are being like advertised. It's where like all the recruiters are. It's where all the brands are looking for young talent. So, the amount of graduates that are coming out and they've got no LinkedIn profile, or they all sort of say, "Oh, I've got a profile, but I've done nothing with it." So we're sort of here trying to bridge the gap to sort of like, help students navigate from like the end of their course through to paid work. Now, what Joseph has shown is like he just ticked all the boxes of what I'm looking for a placement student. Tenacious, like hardworking, good work ethic, willingness to learn. And what I'll do is any placement student that's going to come with us, and you guys will both attest to this, I sort of get to know you on a personal level first. I'm like, what are your strengths? How can we push you? How can we push you and chuck you in at the deep end? So both of you are broadcasters, and I know from my time as production editor at Sky Sports, where I'm looking at people and I'm thinking, can they go on podcasts? Can I chuck them into, a really sort of good environment where they're going to shine on TV and on YouTube now for us. But the key is you've got to be a good writer as well. You have to be a good writer. In this day and age, you've got to be a polished, really good news sense. And that's what we've really tightened up with Joseph in particular. Now, the other thing where he really ticked all the boxes was, do not pigeonhole yourself. Do not just come and tell me that you want to write about football. It's the worst thing I want to hear, because there's a million people that want to do that. You have to try and almost like view a placement call with me as like a job interview. Like, how are you going to make me remember you? So Joseph was like, I like rugby, I like cricket, I like betting, I like football, I like politics. Yeah. So all of a sudden I'm thinking I'm going to chuck him into everything and just see what happens. And the key was he just kept Joseph would like do what I was asking him to do and then seek more. You did the same, Matt. It's just like, don't just do the bog standard. The ones that make it into the roles that are doing are the ones that are happy to go the extra mile. Would you sort of agree with that, Joseph?
Yeah, I think it's a weird thing to hear on your side, because it doesn't really feel like anything different for me. Just to keep on going, really, it doesn't feel like it's any extra harder work or anything more. It was, I think I went into the placement with, I think, being fully aware that this was time limited. This was only a few months that I've had, and wanting to squeeze every single drop of juice out of it. And I think that was what had driven me throughout the entire process. And if there were people who were just starting that process here at SIP and across the different brands, I would just, whatever you do, please jump at anything you can, and also jump at stuff you probably aren't as convinced you have the skills for, because there were certainly times over this placement, particularly I think when it was the Six Nations sort of period and also build up as well, and I was having to learn a totally different way of writing. Almost, when you're writing articles that are focused towards SEO, focused towards getting traffic, that wasn't as much of what I was being taught. I was being taught how to be a good writer, which is fair enough. And obviously for a rub paper audience, that's exactly what you want. You want somebody who can write, as I've just done in the last edition, who can write a 2,500 word double page feature about something and you don't get bored. That's just as well. But sometimes you need to learn how to write a punchy 400 words about this event that's happening tomorrow. And that was the real challenge sometimes, was to learn something new, to be thrown into the deep end doing sub editing for SEO websites and trying to reformat print articles into online. These are the kind of areas which you've got to jump headfirst, I think, even if you are quite nervous, like I was, and like I admitted to Simon about a few months ago when I had a bit of a crash course placement week on the SEO side.
I'll just jump in on that front as well, because actually Joseph's placement kind of evolved in lots of different ways. But what he did was he said, I've got a reading week in February where I'm not on any course, I'm free. He said, like, can I come and like just work with you for the whole week? So that week was the transformative week, really, because we had a short window where we knew we could work with Joseph every single day, chuck him into the content management systems that we work with, WordPress, Squarespace, and really get technical, because that's not what's being taught at university. And that's not kicking them, they just don't know. You know, as you've mentioned, Matt, I've been in sports journalism for 129 years now. All right, it's just 29, but I was just getting the dig in before you did. So I've kind of seen it all evolve. I've kind of know it, and I've learned, like, you know, Joseph was a fantastic writer. A lot of the stuff that he was doing was quite academic, or it was long form. So we wanted to teach him how to write differently, be punchy, be tight. That's kind of what people want on their phones. You know, most people are going to consume this article on their phone, so long paragraphs aren't going to work. These are the things that we teach you. We evolve your writing so that you can be a digital writer. But we also teach you about how Google is looking at your article, you know, the internal links, the embedded YouTube videos, all the technical side of it, so that when you go to a job interview and you sat there and they ask you, what do you know about SEO? We want you to know more than they do, and then they'll give you the job.
No, that's exactly right. And I think we've had most people, if not everybody who's we've spoken to on this podcast, has kind of said one of the gaps that was filled through working with us was that gap in SEO and content management systems. And it's not something I learnt about at university. It's something I know about now, which is great. Joseph, was that something similar with you? Was this a gap that was filled almost, or at least expanded on?
I'd say expanded. I had a basic knowledge of internal links, external links, SEO key phrases, and so on. But the side of how you can use content, how you can use visual content and videos to really boost your traffic, particularly when it comes to that Google side of it, which is obviously becoming so much more important now with the looming threat of aggregators and people not understanding whether or not you're reading the words of an actual human being, which is an amazing thing to say in 2026. But on that side, that was expanded, and that was, I think, the key area of where I was learning. And also, I think, just in terms of how to write towards that SEO audience, because as Simon said, you know, I've come from a university degree studying politics and philosophy. I can write and write and write if I want to, but I also want to be able to hit my marks incredibly quickly and just get the right keywords in there. I think that was the key thing I was trying to train myself into, particularly throughout a lot of the more heavy articles on stats that I was writing about the inflation figures for News Just News. It's about hitting those keywords: cost of living, basket of goods, Bank of England, interest rates. You can write all you want, defining deflation, inflation, disinflation, whatever you want. Hit your marks. And if you're writing about the Six Nations, well, don't talk about your sort of Grand Slam hopes and when was the last time England won a Grand Slam. No, it's Le Crunch, it's Stade de France, it's Paris, it's Six Nations. It's kind of keeping it simple, stupid is more difficult than it sounds when you write it down. And I think that was where I was training myself to be just a bit sharper.
I think I'll just jump in as well as Matt, because obviously I oversee the website side of things. So my role, all of this, is to turn you into an absolute rock star when it comes to writing, because you're going to have to write sports bulletins. You're going to have to write, you know, it all starts with being able to understand what the keywords are, understand the news sense, and then put a good piece together, whether that's going to be for a bulletin or a YouTube video. But Matt, the search engine optimization that we do, it's equally relevant for YouTube, because we've sort of transformed how you were putting the YouTube videos together, weren't we, Matt? You know, the headlines, the descriptions, the keywords. So you do learn website skills, but you learn video and video content skills as well, don't you, Matt?
You do, and it's a very similar process to how you do it on a Google web page, isn't it? Because it's obviously YouTube owned by Google itself, and like Joseph's already alluded to, the use of video within articles can be really helpful for boosting traffic. Google loves it. It's a link between two sites that they own. So you're either going from a site they own to another site they own, or you're staying on one. There's no real loss for them. So they love it, which is what we try and push as much as we can do. And yeah, it's a case if you get all of those keywords in the top line, and Joseph, as you've already said, which we'll get into a little bit more in a second, your work with the Sin Bin 6 podcast with Billy North Lewis, which was fantastic fun, which documented every single week of the Six Nations. We had analysis, we had some not great predictions for two supposed rugby experts, but we'll let that slide. And it was so much fun, and from that point, I hope, Joseph, you were able to see as well from the headlines. It was a case of even as small as the short videos we popped out. It was Ireland lose to France, Six Nations Rugby. It was the keywords people will search for, not this Friday Ireland may play France at this stadium. You don't need everything. It's a case of really crunching it down, which is. I find that really interesting, that's the bit that you have enhanced and learned more over your placement, because a lot of people come to us who are maybe have done a journalism degree, and the punchiness isn't the issue. It's the behind the scenes, which you already seem to have a bit of knowledge on. And it was almost the reversal, which I think not only is really interesting for me personally, but from a company-wide point of view, we can do it all. Whatever gaps you've got, we can fill it, which is great. But anyway, we can talk. I think we've got a bit of time. We can talk briefly about the Sin Bin 6 podcast. You and Billy North Lewis, about 5 or 6 episodes every single week. Talk to us. How much fun was that to do?
Unbelievable fun. I'd jumped on that podcast I did because it was the first time that I'd done anything broadcast for about a year or so. After I'd left local radio, and I immediately was happy to get that adrenaline rush that I don't think will ever get replaced for me in terms of doing broadcast. My background was in match commentary and commentating football matches, rugby matches for radio. It's incredibly high energy. You've got no time to break at all. You can't take 10-second breaks and let your TV camera pan across the pitch. You've got to say everything minute by minute, and that real adrenaline buzz was addictive, and I was happy to get back into it. And alongside Billy, it was a really good pairing. I think it was a good lesson in terms of for anyone who does want to launch their own podcast on the SIP network. Make sure you've got a good co-host, and make sure you have got a good rapport and a good relationship with them, because some of the best moments from that podcast on my end are the moments when it's me and Billy, maybe not arguing because that sounds unprofessional, but having some barbs at each other and wearing our hearts on our sleeves sometimes. And it was a really funny moment towards the end of that series, because if you watch the final episode, and please do, you'll notice the backdrop is a certain Allianz Stadium in Twickenham. It is the hub of English rugby, because I'd happened to be going along for rugby paper for the Schools Cup final. And what was a bit of a sliding doors moment, however much of a cliche that is, that same afternoon I ran off and did my interview for Sportsbeat after I'd done the final episode of the podcast, which is quite a funny, well, not quite funny, but there's no such thing as coincidence in my book. I think you make your own luck, you make your own events, and that feels like that was certain to happen. I think it's quite a nice sliding doors moment on my end.
Well, if we just look at the title on this video, multimedia content creator, before that interview, Joseph, they'd have looked at what your portfolio is, and they'd have seen, on LinkedIn, they'd have seen like links to published articles on proper brands, like brands that I'm sort of responsible for. I've either built the sites or I've built it for a client, proper established brands like promoted there. But then they'll have also seen that you've done a YouTube video and you're fantastic on there. So that's what we are. We want to be a calling card for you. We want you to use the content that you create for us, where you'll be able to create it in an environment where it's not scary. That, you know, we're not saying you've got to hit loads of like views. We're just saying just go and learn, like build some chemistry with, like you did with Billy. You know, that can't be done. You can't force that. It has to come with time. And you are right, by the way, Joseph. Like, no one wants to watch people agreeing with each other. The best videos are when people are having a bit of a heated debate. You know, that's what people want from video. So yeah, I just think you've been a phenomenal sort of like placement student for us. And when you sort of messaged me to say you'd got the job, you know, I knew my remit was to let you think you've got it all now. You've literally filled in all of your skill sets. And that's what the purpose of this placement is, to try and sort of fill out your utility belt so you can go out into the industry and get some paid work.
It is. You've been beyond fantastic on the writing side, on the video side. Your relationship with Billy, which just sparked out of a pure love for rugby, and you could see it across the screen. You've been nothing short of a fantastic example of who comes through the SIP Media Solutions network. And just as a bit of a final closing statement from yourself, Joseph, if someone may be watching this and thinking, oh, I might want to do a placement with them, what would you say?
Whatever you do, make sure that you do the thing that you're the most nervous about, and make sure that you do something that you do not feel confident in. Because I think that for all the LinkedIn posts and for all of the social media stuff and X, formerly known as Twitter, and making it clear to the world that you know your stuff, that's not always going to be the case. And I came into this placement knowing I had things to work on, knowing there are things I genuinely didn't know as much about, and that can be intimidating. Don't be scared to admit that there are areas that you have to work on, and don't be scared to admit that you have flaws within your skill set, areas you need to build on. I think that if you go in with that attitude, as I think I've done, you come out with this idea that you've gained everything, you've lost absolutely nothing by really being quite humble about where you are. I could have walked into this placement being a major arrogant person going, oh, I've been on the BBC, I'm writing for a newspaper, or look at me. No, if you go in with just a bit of humility and go in and saying, I'm going to learn, I think you'll get the most out of it. And whatever you do, keep an eye on who reposts your stuff on LinkedIn. Keep an eye on who is following your LinkedIn account, because you never know where it's going to lead you.
Oh, what a great way to end off. We'll leave it there, Joseph. Thank you ever so much for being a part of SIP, joining us on this podcast, and both myself, Simon, I'm sure Billy does as well, wish you the absolute best of luck with your career going forward. I'm sure it'll be a very big one. Simon, how can people get in touch with us?
Yeah, we've got a SIP Media Solutions website. It's got a contact form on it. You can direct message me on LinkedIn. A lot of people get in touch that way. We are an official placement provider. We're an internship provider for graduates that have completed their course and feel like they might be frustrated because they haven't got the knowledge of SEO to get those job interviews. So we work with graduates and students. We've got partnerships with universities all over the world, but we're always looking to do more partnerships. So our ethos and our remit is to try and help you get into paid work. So Joseph is like a fantastic sort of like example of the placement model that we're looking to sort of like deliver.
Lovely stuff. Gentlemen, have a fantastic rest of your day and see you later.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joseph.